This is the magnetic drain plug that came out of the 4-speed. That's what it looked like when I took it out of the 4-speed. Or it gets better. That is whatever was in it for grease. It looks like soured buttermilk. I don't know what it is. It was 3.5 quarts. It's supposed to have 2 quarts in it. That's the side cover. You can see where the stuff was up this high, settling in there. That's what the inside of the transmission looked like when we took the side cover off of it. That's the inside of the case. That's how bad the inside of the case was. Nobody ever ran this thing down a drag strip with that transmission in it. If they actually tried to run it, it would have burnt something up because the oil was just muck. I mean, I had to scrape it out of the bottom of the case. And then I washed it with Varsol. I didn't put it with parts washer. I went and got me a bucket and put some of it in because I didn't want to ruin $100 worth of Varsol or solvent. So then we took it out. I took it over there and used brake clean and towels and cleaned it out. Now we got it outside fixing to use a steam cleaner on it, finished getting it clean. The yoke on the drive shaft is right over here. That is after I tried to clean it up with some Scotch-Brite. So we'll put a new yoke on it. I don't know what happened here. I know of no way a transmission can get water in it. I mean, there's just not any way a transmission can get water in it once it's in the car. I don't know what they put in it. I don't honestly know. They never made a run in it, I can tell you that for sure. Everything you see sitting here was covered in rust inside the transmission. We cleaned it all up. Shannon glass beat all up this morning while I was cleaning. Side cover was the same way. Side cover's broke right there, and right there. So we're going to have to get another side cover. This goes through the side cover. There's supposed to be a
thread?
Huh?
The helical, that don't look right.
There's no threads in the hole. It's gotta have,
that's why they had this in there.
yeah.
When you work with a mess, you got a big mess.
But it's supposed to have a bolt with a shoulder about that long that goes down into the case. So we need a long shoulder bolt. What else were you talking about we needed? Oh, the baffle.
Hey, it's missing the bottom cover.
Take the one off the old one.
I don't think it had it either.
Well, of course not.
Because all this is a stainless steel band that covers the bottom of it. Hey, Herb, this one ain't got like a 1/4 inch of play up and down. That one actually looks
I got
really
two
good.
more in there.
What?
Let's say they engineered that, okay? Take this out. Take the clip out. Pull that bushing off, and that should fit in that hole.
Do you think, well, there's probably enough adjustment on that. Because it curves forward, right? So we'd have to move this back when we set it.
See if that rod will fit in that hole. I know it will. Yeah. Okay.
The ones that go in the, oh, look, this one's got a flat spot. That's probably not good.
The needle bearings in the cluster are different from needle bearings in the input shaft.
We're probably gonna need some, this one's got flat spots.
The long skinny one or the one that goes in the input?
Long one. I'm gonna put that one over there. That's the first one I've seen like that. That doesn't mean there isn't more, but that's just the first one I've seen.
There's your side cover bolt. See how long the shoulder is?
Isn't the thread bigger?
It's 5/16. Well, they put a helicoil in it, so you probably can't screw it all the way down in. But see, that goes down in the case and locates the side cover. See that? Where's your 1/2 inch wrench? Screw it down in there.
Oh, so the depth goes into the
See, that locates your side cover and puts it in the right place, because if it's not in the right place, your reverse arm won't go up into the side cover.
It won't?
Mm-mm. That's what I thought was wrong, but it wasn't. This was galded. Okay, you can take it out. It's okay.
So leave that over here.
See what else I can find.
Is it okay to beat blast the inside of this case?
It wouldn't hurt nothing, that's for sure.
I mean, it'd look a lot better. I'd feel better about it.
Yeah.
Ready? So all we want to do is only the inside. We don't get it on any finished. part. Yeah, look at that. First part about using the bead blaster is every once in a while you just really got to scratch your face. And it's really hard to pull your hand out real fast and scratch your face. I think so. He's gonna leave us. We gotta go. Hurry.
All right, we're going to lunch, Robert, in the 62 Imperial. I bought this car in 2002 in San Jose, California. I flew out there. I carried my suitcase to the security division at the airport. When I came to the airport, I had an electronic ignition kit, a water pump, fuel pump, tools, all kind of stuff with me. They wrapped my suitcase with some kind of special tape so nobody would mess with it, and it weighed about 60 pounds at least. And I flew out there. I saw it on eBay. That's when eBay first started, and the kids were in there playing with the computer, and they said, "My God, this is an ugly car." I said, "That is a beautiful car. That's a 62 Imperial four-door LeBaron. Got the little back window like a limo had." I said, "Get that guy's number." So they got the guy's phone number, and I called him. I said, "You drive that car?" He said, "Well, I drive it around town here." I said, "Would you drive it across country?" He said, "I don't know about that." I said, "Well, I would." So I bought it. I flew out there, throwed my suitcase in the back seat, and I asked him how much antifreeze he had in, because I went out there in January. He said, "We don't put antifreeze in cars out here." So I went to the local CarQuest or whatever it was down the road there. I drained 2 quarts of very muddy, rusty water out of the radiator, poured in 2 gallons of antifreeze, took off. And I knew a real good place to eat in San Ysidro, I think it is. It's an Italian place. I'd eaten that when I was out there before, so I went there and ate supper, went down the road, got me a motel. Well, I got up the next morning about 4 o'clock because my brain was still on Eastern time. And I walked out there and I said, "What am I going to do if this thing don't crank?" And I hit the key and it fired right up and away we went. And I drove it back to Burlington. It didn't have any paint on it. The headliner was hanging down on my head. I was sitting on 2 cushions and a blanket, but it ran. And I was in Amarillo, Texas. I'm filling it up with gas. And a guy comes up and looks at it. It had California plates on it. He said, "Where'd you get that?" I said, "San Jose, California." He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Burlington, North Carolina." And he looked at me and he said, "You're crazy," and turned around and walked off. I drove to Burlington. So I got home with it. I pulled up in the driveway, and Marie came out. And she looked at it. She said, "What are you going to do with that?" I said, "I'm going to make it pretty, fix it." And so I did. In 2004, I drove it on a hot rod power tour. The day I finished it, they had good guys at Charlotte. So we were going to take the motorhome down and stay in the campground across the road from the track there and go to the good guys. So I told Marie, I said, "You drive the Imperial." She said, "You hadn't driven it." I said, "Well, I drove it from the shop up to the house. That's good enough." So we take off, and we had walkie-talkies back in. And I told her, I said, "Just, get in front of me and take it easy." Well, the next thing I know, she'd gone. And I hollered out on the walkie-talkie. I said, what is it about take it easy you don't understand? And she said, "This car drives great." And away we went. We had a good time. We get down there, and they had a poker run, so we went on it. And we come out of a place, and there's a puddle of antifreeze on this thing half as big as the car, and I'm sick. I said, "Oh my God, I've left something loose." And I crawl under it. No, I didn't leave anything loose. It was a 66 model block that I built for it. It had a crack about that long right above the starter. So I put some stop leak in it, got some antifreeze, some water put in it, and we did the good guys. And I got home, and I had been to PRI show, and I saw this company called Lock and Stitch, and they sell a kit where you can fix cracks. Well, I figured it was about half a gimmick, so I called the guy up, told him what was wrong. I said, "I got about a 6-inch crack right above the starter." He said, "No problem." So he sold me the kit. I'd take the kit and I'd drill a hole right at the end of the crack. I put this little tool in it. It has 2 more holes in it. So I drill those 2 holes. I take that out, You move over, you go all the way down the crack, drilling holes in the crack. And then he's got these little magic plugs that you buy with it. You put the sealer on them, and you screw them in until you break the head off. Then you go back between each plug with that same tool and drill a hole between each plug. And you run the tap in it, screw the plug in it, break the cap off. Well, I drove it 70-something thousand miles with that patch in it, with it sewed up like that, and opened up another one time about 4 inches long right above it. And so I sewed it up, and Russ Flegel got to aggravate me. He said, Herb, you're going to be riding down the road one day and the whole side's going to fall out of that block. So I built another engine and put in it. But the one that was in it never used a drop of oil. It's sitting on the shelf. I'd put it back in the car in a minute. Wouldn't think twice about it. But this thing runs great. It drives great. It's very comfortable. It's got a vintage air in it. When I put the vintage air in, you couldn't put the vintage air in. There was no room on the dash. So I took a saw, cut the dash off right there, put the vintage air in, and I made that front panel for the dash so it covered my vintage air unit. And last year, I have not messed with that vintage air since we put it in the car. And last year we had to put 2 hoses on it. The hoses just deteriorated from 20 years of use. But this thing runs and drives great. I've driven it all over the country. Goes anywhere, runs great. It's got autopilot. It doesn't have cruise control. There's a dial right here that's got numbers in it, and you set it to whatever speed you want. You pull this little button out like that. And when you get up to that speed, it'll automatically take the accelerator away from you. And down the road it goes. And I never took it off the car when I restored the car, but I figured out how to fix it. It's got a cover on top of it. I took the cover off, and there's 3 sets of points like we used to have in a distributor. And I filed them 3 sets of points, and it works perfect. I filed them a couple of times in the last 20 years. It's been done 22 years now. But I'm not scared to drive it anywhere. We drove it up to Bob Walker's place up at Low Gap, Hotheads, last week to pick up a crankshaft. Me and Shannon drove it up there. He'd never been anywhere in it. It rides and runs great. I was reading an article in Cars magazine the other night. That's a really good magazine. It's called Cars. It really is. They do a lot of neat stories, and they do them right. And they were doing a story reprinting articles from 1960, 61, comparing the Lincoln Continentals, the Cadillacs, and the Imperials. And the Imperial just killed them. Everything that the writers had to say, the Imperial came out on top at everything they did. Especially driving on 2-lane country back roads, because these cars drive and handle so good. Everything they said about the Imperial in those articles was just above and beyond. And this is not a Chrysler magazine. They were just doing it to show you, what they printed back then. There was a guy named McCahill or something like that did articles back then, and he bought him a 62 Imperial LeBaron because he carried his big dog with him everywhere he went. And he said the little back window, this car got a little bitty back window like a limo's got. And he said the little back window made the shade much better for his dog to ride in back there. And everything he wrote about the car was really good. I love the square steering wheel. I really like that. You get used to it, and it's really nice. There's a problem with them. I was down at Ryan Newman's place. Don Miller, really good friend of mine, he's friends with Don, and we went over to Ryan's house in the Imperial. Well, Ryan's a engineer, mechanical engineer or whatever, and he looked at that square steering wheel and he said, that won't work. I said, what do you mean it won't work? He said, it's going to break right there at the top. I said, yes, sir, it does. I just fixed it. They expand. A regular round steering wheel will expand. This does that when it expands. They'll pull it apart right there. So I don't leave it out in the sun when it's 100 degrees. Ryan got a kick out of that. They break right up. Every one you see is broke right here. Just go to a Chrysler, go to Carlisle and walk around. You find a 62 Imperial, or I think 61 had it too. And I don't know if 63 had it or not, but they'll be cracked right there on the top, every one of them. I've driven on several hot rod power tours. I'm not scared. I just get in it and go. It's got a Torqueflite. This was the first year for the aluminum Torqueflite. Okay. They were cast iron up till 62, and 62 was the first year for the aluminum Torqueflite. And it's a 1-year transmission because they didn't have park in 62 in the big block cars. So it has an emergency brake on the tail housing of the transmission. That's the only year they made that. I took a tail housing. I had a real good friend named Sonny Benson that worked at the Proving Grounds. He was a transmission specialist. I was building my 61G car that I put the 5.7 in, and I put a small block Torqueflite behind it because it'll bolt right up. And I used the 62 because the 62 I could use my push buttons in my 61G car. Well, 62 small blocks had park, but I had no place for the park cable. So I was talking to Sonny. He said, "Don't you have a spare transmission for your 62 Imperial?" I said, "Well, of course I do." He said, "Bring it up here." So I loaded everything up and drove up to Sykeston, Missouri, where Sonny lived. He was a wonderful person, very smart. And he took the tail housing off the 62 big block transmission and put it on the 62 small block transmission. That's what's in my 61 300G with the 5.7 in it. Because any small block transmission from 62 up, bolt right up to a 5.7, 6.1, any of those motors. My 61G is the best riding, best driving car of all the cars we've got. And we got a bunch, you know, with the museum cars and all of Michael's stuff and my stuff. But the 61G is hands down the best. Smoothest, quietest, set the cruise control, turn on the satellite radio, and turn on the original factory air in the 61. It's not a vintage air, it's the original factory air in the car. Vicky carries a blanket and a jacket with her everywhere we go.
So cold.
Yeah.
Awesome.